some recipes, you probably know this, get passed down from generation to generation, like they are, because they just don't need to be tweaked. Today, we're checking out one of those recipes thanks to our pal Joe White, who is the owner of the Shrimp Boat. We're glad you're here.
Thanks for having me out.
Always good to have you.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
So this isn't really a recipe that was really passed down as much as my grandfather just made me make this for him. I don't think he cared if I ever kept it as long as I made it for him.
Okay.
So, but I'm here to show you.
We're still going to make it a warm and fuzzy thing.
Oh,
with,
okay.
you know,
Yeah.
It's been passed down generation to generation.
Does it have a
So
name?
what is it?
It's oyster stew.
Okay.
It's a simpler version. It's the one he likes. And you know, I've been very close to my grandfather over the years. He's really helped me out with the shrimp boat. He was my driver for many years. And one of the things when we were closed in the season, he would ask me to make him oyster stew. So,
Okay.
And next weekend we're going to be at the fire department in Parsonsburg making oyster fritters. So I thought this is kind of a good tie-in.
Ooh,
So,
it is.
yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I guess we need to get cooking.
So so I got a pan with about a quarter cup of butter, and then if you want to just go ahead and that's a half a pint of oysters, and then go right in there.
Just pour them in?
Yep, pour them in.
Juice and all?
Juice and all. So a lot of people, when they make a oyster stew, they actually make like a roux, you know, with some butter, some flour, maybe a little minced garlic. I like, what he likes is almost the oysters fried. They're like a little crispy. Mm-hmm. It's a different way of doing it. And honestly, this is a simpler way for anybody at home who's maybe not very good at making a roux to enjoy leftovers from Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we do need a lemon wedged out. Would you want to cut that, Jimmy, for us? And what we're going to do is we're going to watch these.
So when you wedge it, you want it lengthwise?
Lengthwise,
And that's your wedge?
yeah.
So not just,
And,
okay.
no fingers.
you gotta
Man, oh
specify
man,
that.
you really get.
So the shrimp boat you were saying is actually closed for the season.
Yep, it got a little colder earlier this year, and we're fresh seafood. You know, we'll be back in March.
Yeah. So what do you do in the off season?
Well, you know, I fight the winter blues like a lot of folks, and I look for any opportunity we get to enjoy some seafood. And one of those ways is, you know, shrimp, maybe oysters, that sort of thing. And so we'll have an event in December at the fire department in Parsonsburg, and then the oyster roast is in January, and that's a great way to kind of, you know, bridge that gap.
Yeah.
It'll be warm soon.
Yeah.
But we got some cold weather ahead.
Now it's interesting. These guys are they look like they're kind of stretching out a little bit.
They are, and look, you see the edges get crispy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this recipe kind of unique. And you'll notice, I mean, there's a lot of oysters. So my grandfather, his idea of oyster stew is, you know, like a little cream with your fried oysters, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
so,
okay. Okay.
Are you ready? Well, we'll add the heavy cream and that sort of thing. So it's kind of down to a simmer at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to lower the temp, and we're going to add the cream in there.
Okay, just
and
all of
all of that. And that's about 3 ounces of cream.
3 ounces of cream.
And this is going to make 2 portions. Mm-hmm. And then we have 6 ounces of whole milk.
whole milk. Okay.
So, you know, we're not quite half and half. And I think this is where a lot of the flavor comes from. It's almost like a deglazing of the pan from the fried oysters.
I see.
And so the temperature I'm actually going to turn back up a little bit. And then we have to add a little bit of shrimp seasoning. We'll put a little bit of that in
Was
there.
that like anywhere close to what you were wanting?
Yeah, it is. That's actually great. We're just going to add just a little bit of lemon at the end.
Oh, okay.
And
It's
it's really
supposed
the
to be
taste.
pretty then.
It is. That's very pretty.
How much is a little bit?
That's good. That's
Okay,
actually
all
perfect.
right.
So I like the shrimp boat seasoning in this situation versus some of the more traditional ones you'll find at the grocery store because it has a lot less salt.
Okay.
And you don't want to mask the taste of the oysters.
Sure.
And the last thing is, I guess, some chopped parsley. Would you want to put about half of that in?
Oh, may I?
Yes, you can.
Is there any particular style that you prefer?
Just lightly, there you go. Just a little flair.
That's my favorite one.
So we're gonna let this simmer for about 8 minutes.
Okay, well,
and,
we're
it'll be ready.
gonna take a little break, let that simmer, and then we come back. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the event next weekend at the Parsonsburg's Volunteer Fire Department.
And I got wedged lemons.
And he's got wedged lemons, so stick around. DelmarvaLife will be right back. The stew has been simmering slowly during the commercial break, unleashing all of that fresh seafood flavor. And Joe White from the Shrimp Boat knows knows a thing or two about fresh seafood, don't you?
Yes, and I know when Mother Nature says, you know, it's going to get cold early, you have to kind of slow down, right? But you can
Right.
still do oysters.
Oyster, and
Yeah.
we're making oyster stew.
We have made oyster stew. The only thing left is for you all to have some.
Ooh.
And
That didn't take long at all.
It didn't, and you know, it's a great thing to use for your extra holiday leftovers. Also, just if you're at the grocery store, just pick up a half a pint, or you know, stop by a local waterman, give them the business. You can just get rid of that winter, you know, blues feel.
Blues, yeah.
You know.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
So
Well, we'll try
this
it.
is your granddad's. Do you call it recipe? Creation?
you know, he's not much of a cook, but I mean, I would say yes. I got to give him a lot of credit. My grandfather is a lifetime member at Parsonsburg Fire
Oh
Department.
yeah.
And he was assistant chief at one time.
Wow.
So tell us about Shrimp Happens.
Yes.
So it's an event we're going to host on the 9th, which is next Saturday. And you could come out and get shrimp boat shrimp. Now we're going to do the head off because sometimes people take them to, you know, family members and that sort of thing. But we'll have our cocktail sauce and our seasoning, crab cakes, flounder sandwiches, and the fire department's going to make oyster fritters. Now we're not going to make oyster stew, but we are going to make cream of crab soup. Again, if you just need that little bit of seafood flavor to get you a little closer to the spring,
Sold.
yes.
So
This is so good.
This is fantastic.
It really is. I wish it wasn't so hot.
But you said it's not it's not really a recipe.
So the whole story is he used to come in my one store up in Delaware. He was a truck driver for many, many years. And he would buy a pint of oysters and ask me to make this exact recipe
Make this.
for him. And he loved it and would stop by. Him and my grandmother would stop by once a week.
Grandpa, you've
And,
done good. You've
Yeah.
done good.
So
I don't think I've ever actually finished anything during the segment. We only have time
Yeah,
for one or
today.
two bites, but I
Yep.
think I'm going to finish this. What do you think, Jimmy?
Joe White Shrimp Boat. Thank you.
thanks for having me
Thank
on,
you
Paul.
so much.
Thank you. This is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.